Am I the jerk for making my family cancel their vacation because I won't watch their dogs? My parents, who are 82 years old and 75 years old, asked if I would help them book a much-needed vacation. They also asked me to do the same for my brother, who is 43, and sister-in-law, who is 33, because they wanted to take a family vacation in September. My husband, who is 46, and I, who am 41 years old, cannot afford to go because I am currently out of a job. Even though this would be the first family vacation I will have ever missed, and it made me really sad, I said I would, of course, help. My mother even mentioned to me that in a way it's good because I'd be able to watch my brother's pugs and my parents' chihuahua. Here's the thing about watching the dogs. It's a 24/7 job that requires me to stay at my brother's house. The dogs are wonderful but very high maintenance. Because of this, I have been telling my brother for nearly 10 years that he needed to hire a dog sitter. Money isn't an issue for him. I've dog sat for them 3 times this past year, varying from 1 to 5 nights. They paid me well, but I do not feel comfortable staying at their house, and I find the round-the-clock care exhausting. My husband and I have 5 cats, and we are no strangers to feeling like our pets are our kids, but we don't have dogs for a reason. Now, I'm supposed to be booking this trip for my brother, but he hasn't even asked me about watching the dogs. Sunday at family dinner, everyone was there except my sister-in-law, who was ill. My brother was sitting across from me, so I reached out to hold his hand and said that I love him. I love the pugs, but I can't watch them when they go on vacation and that he needs to get a dog sitter. I said it was just too much to ask me to be trapped at their house for 7 nights, and that I have been asking him to hire a dog sitter for nearly a decade. I even offered suggestions and said I'll help find someone. He started to get reactive and said that they wouldn't watch my cats anymore. I said that's fine, we have a cat sitter, but I pointed out that I asked them if they can help. They, on the other hand, didn't ask me. My brother finally conceded that it is a lot to ask for 7 nights and 5 dogs. Excuse me? Yes, 5 dogs, because his mother-in-law apparently was planning to go too. So now added to the mix are 2 Italian greyhounds. I stayed calm and gently pointed out that I felt this way before knowing there were 5 dogs. Can he imagine how I felt? He seemed to understand. By the time I left dinner, there were hugs and kisses, and all was well. I knew my brother was upset, but he seemed to understand, and I was really proud of putting up boundaries. The next evening, I called my parents to see if they had heard from my brother. Apparently, he called them after he got home from family dinner and was blindsided by me. My sister-in-law was just as upset as him too. They think I'm throwing a tantrum because I can't go on the vacation. While yes, that sucks, I told him my real issue is being trapped at their house for 7 nights. Now they are canceling the vacation because I won't watch the dogs. Am I the asshole for telling them I won't do it? You acted correctly. They are grown people who had plenty of time to find arrangements for their dogs. They can hire a pet sitter. It's not your responsibility to take care of their pets. It's almost like they're trying to make you feel guilty or something. Am I the jerk for getting into an argument with my spouse because they left me during surgery? I am a 25-year-old female, and my husband, a 27-year-old male, and I have been together for almost 4 years. We do not have any children. I had a same-day lumpectomy surgery yesterday. The tumor is not believed to be malignant, but I wanted it removed since my mother had breast cancer. My husband got the day off work and drove me. The surgery was delayed for about 3 hours, and my husband was getting impatient. The surgeon finally came in and said she expected the surgery would take an hour. After she left, my husband said he was going to leave the hospital to get lunch when I went under since he had not eaten that day. I wanted him to be able to eat and was trying to be brave, but I really did not want to be left when the surgery was only supposed to be an hour. I asked him if we could pick up food for him on the way home. He gave me the impression he would stay, and I was wheeled away. Fast forward to 30 minutes later. I was being shaken awake by a nurse who told me I was sick, and she was trying to get in touch with my husband. Apparently during the surgery, my blood pressure dropped rapidly, and my surgeon was able to get the tumor out in 20 minutes. My blood pressure was 70/30 by the time they got it out, and my lips had turned blue. I was very sick in my room. I was bleeding through my internal stitches, coming in and out of consciousness, and was vomiting. All the while, my nurse was trying to track my husband down. My surgeon called him, but he did not answer. I am very thankful for the sweet nurses who took care of me and reassured me. It is the next day now, and I am very emotional and angry about the whole ordeal. My husband did not apologize and has been incredibly defensive about the whole thing. His explanation for leaving was, I went out and got lunch, and then I was getting gas because I was low from driving your ass around. The surgery was supposed to be an hour. How was I supposed to know your heart could have stopped? I told him he had one job, which was to stay with me and tell me what the surgeon says. I could get over him leaving if he was apologetic or remorseful, but I am shocked at his words and how little he seems to care for someone he claims to love. In his defense, he cared for me last night when we got home but left today after we argued. I am sure I am just still really emotional from anesthesia and being a bit dramatic, but I cannot even look at him the same. He is usually attentive and caring, so I am baffled. I am sure he thought the chances of anything going wrong were slim, but I cannot understand his thought process. I sat for hours and hours in waiting rooms during all of my mother's breast cancer procedures and was nervous to even leave for a minute to get food. God forbid I do not have cancer, because I do not trust him with anything medical now. Anyway, I am unsure what I hope to get from writing this to strangers. I just needed to vent. Talk about a cold-hearted response. Ignoring phone calls from the hospital and then saying, "How was I supposed to know your heart could have stopped?" is just beyond cruel. Anesthesia hangover or not, that's an incredibly insensitive thing to say to someone who just had serious complications. He definitely has no defense for his behavior, and it's shocking to say the least. Am I the jerk for changing my name quietly after telling my mom I was going to, whether she came around or not? My name is a hot topic right now. I was given the name Jennifer at birth. However, before I was born, my parents had intended to call me Calla Lily. They loved the flowers, and my mother read the name Calla in a book. My mother had a change of heart right before I was born and worried the name was too weird and too out there for a real person. She decided she was going to name me after one of her aunts. My middle name was also changed. To start with, I never really liked the name Jennifer. Jenny is what a lot of people called me, but I was not a fan. My grandpa called me Jen. As a younger child, I would go by my middle name a lot. The other issue is Aunt Jennifer. My mother and she have had some real conflicts for the majority of my life. It started after I was born, so I was already named, and my name is almost a trigger for my mother. It was also a weird experience to hear my mother rant and rave to my dad about Jennifer for hours at a time. I knew she wasn't talking about me, but it was hard to separate. Not to mention, whenever anyone called me Jen Jr. or Jennifer Jr., she would look so disgusted. My mother would make comments that she was eternally grateful my middle name wasn't the same as Aunt Jennifer's. I was 9 years old when my dad told me the story about Calla Lily and how it was my intended name before I was born. I asked why I didn't get that name because it was so pretty. Dad told me it was and he wanted it, but Mom just couldn't commit to it once I was only a week or two away from being born. He confessed that Mom's issues with Aunt Jennifer meant they played it safer with my siblings' names. They went for something more classic even though he would have liked something prettier for each of us, even the boys. He didn't want to risk more family issues becoming a strain. He acknowledged the fact that my name was a sore point for reasons. At age 9, I started to go by Calla. It took a while for people to call me that, but Calla stuck, and I remember feeling like it was meant for me. My grandpa went from calling me Jen to Little Flower, which was even sweeter than Jen, honestly. My mom would always grumble, whether I went by my middle name or by Calla, that my name was Jennifer and I shouldn't confuse people. I was 16 years old when I decided my name was changing. I knew my mother would be unsupportive, so I waited until 6 months ago, just before I turned 18, and I told my mother I was going to the courthouse on my 18th birthday and filing to change my name. I told her it would happen whether she came around or not. I didn't say more to her, and I filed, went to court, paid for the change, which Dad secretly helped me pay for, and the official change took place a month ago. So I'm now Calla. I didn't make a big deal out of it, but some mail went to my parents' house, and my mother freaked out. She told me I needed to involve her more and should have never done it so quietly. She believed that one talk was not enough. Am I the asshole? You did nothing improper. So the name is a trigger for your mom, as she doesn't get along with your aunt, and she still gets mad that you don't go by Jennifer? Does your mom want to use you as an outlet for her anger over her fights with your aunt or what? Ignore your mom's tantrum. She no longer gets a vote. Am I the jerk? My parents want me to up my bill contribution, but I found out they're being incredibly irresponsible with their money. I, a 26-year-old male, have been living back with my parents, who are a 66-year-old male and a 61-year-old female, for a couple of years now. I work full-time while one of my parents is retired. Other than housing, I have been financially independent and have been saving up for possibly buying a house when the market and interest rates are more favorable. Our arrangement has been pretty good. They originally dreamed of this being a home where two families can live. I cover my part of the utilities, averaging $120 per month, and pay off a part of the mortgage, about $400 per month for me. The cost is a bit less than renting in my area. Last week we had a conversation about increasing my contribution because the electricity bill spiked for the summer. I was comfortable paying this, but I brought up the mortgage because I was wondering how long we would have to keep paying into it. They built the house almost 30 years ago, and the mortgage should be paid off soon. That's when I found out they've actually never intended to pay it off. They've been refinancing the mortgage every few years so they can accept a quick wad of cash and spend it on multiple lavish vacations a year, a lot of online shopping, and more liquor than is reasonable for a single person to consume in their lifetime. They also pay for a storage unit for all of the extra stuff they have from online shopping. They originally were able to build this house because they inherited and sold paid-off houses when my grandparents died. Now I found out that they intend to pass off a house with an insane amount of debt and monthly costs to me when they die. I understand that not all people are given the opportunities that I have, and it is their money and assets at the end of the day. But I don't see why I'm paying into a mortgage that they intend to refinance again in 10 years. This really rubs me the wrong way. I would not do this to my children, especially if they are growing up in a worse economy than the one I grew up with. Are my feelings valid, or am I being selfish? You are not the one to blame, but it's important to pay rent since you're living there and would have to pay rent anyway. It might be a good idea to consider moving out sooner and maybe finding a fixer-upper where you could increase the value with sweat equity. It's better to build up your own equity so that you can benefit from the rent payments. Plus, you can't control how they spend their money, so it's best to focus on your own financial future. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my inheritance? About my situation. My family members include my father, who is 60 years old, and his wife of 1 year, who is 55 years old. My father married her 6 months after winning the lottery jackpot. My father's wife has 2 adult daughters in their mid-30s. I also have a brother who is 25 years old. My brother grew up with our father, while I grew up with our mother, who has borderline personality disorder. My parents separated when I was 3 years old, so I have no memory of that time or prior. We are all working class. My father and I had started building a relationship in the past 4 years, talking at least every other week and meeting up occasionally. The triggering event was my father winning over $10 million in the lottery. The request was for me to sign away my future inheritance. This request was made by my stepmother and my brother. The conflict is that I do not want to sign away my future inheritance. The reason I think maybe I should is that my brother has a point when he says that this man was no father to me, and I was no daughter to him. The same reason is my main reason why I actually should keep my future inheritance. It's not like you get a new dad just because the first one walks out. And if anything, I think maybe I deserve more than my brother since at least he got the less problematic parent even if he was unavailable. Around a year ago, my dad, who I barely know, won a lot of money. I mean a totally life-changing amount. His then-girlfriend became his wife. They bought a few properties, went on vacations, and invested some. All good, right? Not really, since we live in a country where you cannot write your children out of your will. None of the above-mentioned people have paid much attention to me over the years, until now that is. At first, I was so happy for my dad since I knew he had struggled in the past. I was close with my paternal grandmother and her main caregiver for 2 out of her last 5 years in life, so she told me a lot about him and his life. I always wondered, so I asked my questions. I didn't mean to be nosy or anything. I just wanted to know how everything had been since he left my mother, as I grew to understand that borderline personality disorder is not easy to deal with. I did not blame him very much after my childhood with my mother. A couple of weeks ago, my stepmother accused me of only being interested in my dad due to him winning the lottery. Once I rejected that accusation, she asked me to prove it by officially giving up my future inheritance. Children are entitled to share 50% of what would be left, so in my case with one sibling, that's 25% of his wealth. She offered to pay for the legal assistance in this. My brother added in, basically claiming I have no right to anything as my mother's child and that I'm not my dad's daughter in any important sense, so I shouldn't inherit. Today, my stepmother's oldest daughter texted me asking if I had made up my mind. I told her yes, and that I will keep any rights to future inheritances. She called me an asshole for not seeing their point of view. She told me she'll call my brother and to expect follow-up later today. So, am I an asshole here? Maybe I'm too involved to see it myself. You did nothing improper. It's your right, and your step-family is acting greedy by asking you to give up your inheritance. You are legally entitled to some of that money as a child of the now wealthy parent. If the rest of the family can't accept that you're going to get a percentage of that money, tell them tough shit. Your dad should be the one deciding who gets what, not your step-family. Am I the jerk for not taking in my sibling and telling my parent to stick to their plans? I, a 24-year-old male, moved out 2 years ago. At the same time, my brother Ben, who is 40 years old, lost his job and got kicked out of his apartment. Our family includes 2 sisters, Tara, who is 28 years old, and Vicky, who is 32 years old. Tara had just moved into a bigger apartment with her husband and children at that time, and she decided to take in Ben, because our mother did not want to. He got the room of my nephew, who was 1 year old at the time. In these 2 years, Ben has done basically nothing. He stopped giving my sister money over a year ago and spends it all on cigarettes and beer. He just sits on his computer and plays games all day. Last week, my sister decided that she wants Ben out by the beginning of August. Her children are constantly fighting, and she thinks it will get better once Ben is out. But she did not really plan anything out properly. She just decided to have him move into our mother's place without asking about it first. Tara, Vicky, and I have a group chat, and these two were just texting about what they need to get done to move Ben in with our mother. They said, we need to talk to her landlord about putting him on the paperwork. They also said when he moves out of her place, our mother can sign off on the papers that he has no rent debt. They are already 5 steps ahead and talking about him moving out of our mother's place one day. I sat down with our mother last Sunday and asked her about the whole situation. My sister had just made one suggestion over the phone about this, just a pal about he moves in with you, and nothing more. She does not want to give up her spare room. She has already been through this whole thing with him once before when he was around 20 years old. On Sunday evening, I got a call from my mother. She had talked to Ben, and he was told that she wanted to take him in. My sister must have told him that, I assume. He got mad and told her off for not wanting to take him in. I told her that she should not let my sisters strong-arm her into this and that Ben had 2 years to do anything about this. She is worried she might come home from her vacation and find him moved in since my sisters and I all have keys to her apartment. My sisters are angry at me for not being on their side. I was told, really lovely how you react to a family emergency, as long as you're fine. But this is not an emergency. It has been the norm for 2 years now. I will not take him in either. My boyfriend and I have talked about it, and we do not want to give up our hobby room for the next 2 years just so we can feed a grown man and see no improvement. I just wish my sister had given everyone some time to plan this out. If she had just said something 2 or 3 months ago, it would all go a bit smoother. Am I too harsh here? Should I have just stayed out of it? Am I the antagonist? Your actions don't make you a jerk, but everyone else sucks except your mother. It's bizarre that a 40-year-old can't handle his own housing situation. Your mother is being strong-armed into taking responsibility for her adult son, and it's your sisters who are pushing this on her. Under no condition should she add him to her lease, as that would make her liable for his actions while he mooches off her. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.